Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first set of product deep dive sessions that BT Wholesale are running. We've got a full agenda today, and I'm hoping everyone is registered for a number of the sessions. So to kick things off, we're going to cover networking and high bandwidth. So today we're going to cover updates across the portfolios. We're going to give a glimpse of the future in terms of the product roadmaps. Also talk through some of the latest commercial offers that we've got on the products as well. And most importantly, got an opportunity for Q&A with a number of the product specialists that we've got on today. So in terms of just kicking this off, and make sure that the tech is all working today, we're going to start with a quick question. So if everyone please use the voting buttons, and the question that we want to get your thoughts on is, in 5 years' time, what do you predict the average bandwidth sold is going to be across business connectivity products? So we'll give it a couple of seconds for everyone to vote, so we can just kind of see what everyone thinks. And we're going to cover a bit of the market trends in the future, so it'll be interesting to see what everyone thinks coming through on here. So we'll give it a couple. It looks quite even at the moment. We'll give it a couple more. Okay. So really, really interesting. So I think what we've got there is that the highest number, about 50% actually are saying 10 gig, which is really, really interesting. And we'll come on to that in terms of our 10 gig bandwidth opportunity. So great. And first of all, thanks for everyone for taking part in that. It's really good that we've got the tech going as well, because we'll be using this throughout the presentations today, and also we'll be using this for the Q&A sessions as well. So in terms of high bandwidth and bandwidth in general that we've just talked about, I think it's a good opportunity now just to bring in Sam Ward. So Sam, if I ask you in terms of where are we seeing the growth currently in the connectivity market?
Thanks, Paul. So if you look at where we're seeing the greatest growth today, we're seeing the kind of biggest growth in bandwidths above a gig. I think it's fair to say over the last 2 years, BT Wholesale have really seen demand for 10 gig really start to accelerate. If you look on the screen now, we've got some insight, and I think really, really kind of interesting here. So if you take the statement there on the left, so circuits above a gig will account for 88% of market revenues. This is in the business connectivity B2B space by 2030. So I think if you tuned in today, you're watching this, you're thinking, how am I going to develop my portfolio in the future? Where does the greatest opportunity sit? What is my connectivity strategy? I think this is really valuable insight and certainly something to think about. Looking at the poll, I think, we're all kind of thinking that way, but I think, it really stands out as significant. And I think in terms of, if you look at what's driving that growth, I think it's fair to say there's no surprises there. So businesses are becoming more and more reliable on their business connectivity, and they're increasingly moving business critical applications to the cloud. The use of voice and video in everyday kind of how we work, like we're live streaming this out to our customers today. So I think, no surprises there in terms of kind of where we're seeing what's driving that growth. So really valuable insight. I think about that today. Think about it as we go through the presentation. Really kind of key to the market and where the future opportunity sits. And
so really interesting. So and what are BT Wholesale doing to help the market address that opportunity?
Yeah, so if you look at the BT Wholesale's Ethernet portfolio today, we've got a range of access options in there. So you can see on there, bandwidths up to a gig, we've got SAGIA and FTTP. I think really kind of key to call out when we're referring to those today in the presentation, we aren't talking about the broadband variants. We are talking about, business grade connectivity. So 5 nines in terms of SLA, the same kind of service availability that you would get from EAD. So we can talk a bit more about that later today. But where we're really kind of thinking back to that insight on the previous slide, where we're really kind of sinking our investment where we're really kind of focusing on growing our portfolios is in the kind of 10 gig and above space. So we are, today, if you look at our plans, we've got really aggressive plans to increase our 10 gig coverage this year. We offer a range of different 10 gig access options today. So we've got EAD and OSA if you're connecting your end users. And then I think something that really kind of key to call out here is we want to make it cheaper and more cost effective for our customers to partner with us to sell 10 gig. So 2 years ago now, we launched our data center 100 gig access. We also launched 100 gig at the exchange. And where this really plays into our portfolio, it means that if you are selling layer 2 wholesale Ethernet today and you want to make it cheaper to sell on 10 gig, we've launched 100 gig access. So rather than buying multiple 10 gig ports, you can buy a single 100 gig interconnect with us and aggregate that all back to your network, and much more cheaper, much more cost effective, and kind of a reason to partner with us really to sell on 10 gig.
Okay, great stuff. So, and I know we'll come back to the high bandwidth in a minute, but you talked about FTTP as well, and FTTP and focus on business connectivity. So, wonder if you can just summarise what we're doing to make FTTP more appealing to the business market.
Yeah, so I touched on it before. FTTP is a fantastic alternative for business grade connectivity up to a gig. I said it before, but just like 1 gig EAD, 1 gig FTTP comes with the same SLA, the same uptime that you would expect of a business grade product. And I think it's really kind of, we're looking at this and we're thinking, how can we evolve the product, the access into the product as more business focused? So we've got a number of initiatives, a number of developments that are in flight in terms of trying to develop the product. The first one being named engineer. So we launched that back in March this year. I have to say, when I'm talking about all these, really important to understand that these are the Ethernet variants, not broadband. So this isn't the broadband roadmap, this is the Ethernet FTTP roadmap. So named engineer was launched in March. Pretty says what it does on the tin, really. So if you place an order with us, you get an option of a named engineer to select. But where I think this really comes into play is for those customers that are kind of have highly secure environments and they need to know exactly who is on site at what time. So when we come back and confirm that named engineer, not only do you get the name of the engineer, you also get their contact details and you also get the registration. So really kind of important to those kind of customers thinking about government, police, critical national infrastructure type customers that need to know who's on site and when. And then later this year, we're launching SS RAMs. So this is an offering whereby we do a risk assessment. So we'll send someone to site ahead of the installation, and they will take notes, they'll take photos of the site, they kind of do an overall assessment, and they provide those notes and photos and all that information to the engineer ahead of the install date. And what that means is that we're trying to deliver kind of a better right first time, no kind of need for additional appointments, and it goes ahead correctly as planned on the day. And then next one that we're launching later this year is out of hours appointing. So again, I have to point out that whilst it says FTTP on the slide, this one is only coming for Ethernet variant of Sagia. But again, pretty much does what it says on the tin. If you order an engineer visit with us at the moment, you can only get an engineer to site between the hours of 8 and 6 p.m. Now, we recognise some businesses are 24-hour, and those hours don't quite work for everybody. So it's opening up those slots to around-the-clock, more flexible appointing. And then finally, we've got business standard. This is coming next financial year. The benefit of this is when you place an order into us, the system will automatically select the site visit reason. And again, it's focused on making sure that everything is correct, and when the engineer goes to site, the appointment goes ahead as planned and there's no need for additional appointments. So I think overall it's about all these features play into developing it into a business grade product, focusing on improving the installation journey and getting it right first time.
Okay, yeah, really good. So lots of features coming, lots of features that we've got already in the portfolio. You talked about business business grade, but I suppose the other key thing is business coverage. So it might be good just to give a quick update in terms of where we are from a coverage perspective for FTTP and where we're going to.
Yeah, so in terms of FTTP coverage within the Ethernet portfolio, this is kind of really important, right? All them features are great, but if you can't physically get the product, then, you know. So in terms of where we are today, Openreach have got coverage for FTTP nationwide to about 14 million premises. And that's split into two parts. So you've got residential, and you've got non-residential. So by non-residential, obviously business premises, business customers. So we obviously work closely with Openreach. We're mapping, enabling those non-residential, so business premises, and enabling them for Ethernet FTTP. So what that looks like today, so if you can see on the graph there, 34% of non-residential customers today can get the FTTP variant, of FTTP, sorry. And then if you look at how we've mapped that, so obviously in order to provide the Ethernet variant of this, we have to deploy what we call cable links into our 21C network, and that separates the traffic from the shared broadband network. Obviously, we have to make a commercial decision on in terms of where we enable, so we don't map Openreach's footprint directly, but we're not far off. So in terms of BT Wholesale's Ethernet offering today, for an FTP access, it's 29% chance that if you were to put a customer postcode into our portal, you'd be able to get FTTP. Now then, thinking forward, if you look at the graph there, Openreach have got some really aggressive coverage plans. So over the next 3 years, they're going to get to 82% of coverage to non-residential premises. So really aggressive growth, fantastic opportunity. We are mapping heavily against that. So what does that mean? In 3 years' time, come to our portals, there's an 80% chance that if you put in your postcode, you'll be able to get the FTTP Ethernet variant. So, you know, significant opportunity. I think it's a really exciting time for FTTP, and I think for customers watching this today that only work with us on EAD for Ethernet and you haven't onboarded, you haven't productized FTTP within your Ethernet portfolio, then I think there's definitely some food for thought, thinking about the features we've talked about, thinking about the coverage growth. I think, you know, one certainly to think about in terms of the future.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks Sam. And I suppose it's also worth saying that the FTTP access that we've talked about is on Ethernet, but that's also available on our DIA portfolio, which is a good opportunity for me to bring John Parsons in, who's our lead on DIA and also Ethernet transformation. So John, just wondering, could you just give a quick overview in terms of the approach that we've taken from a BT Wholesale portfolio perspective to DIA?
Yes, thanks, Paul. Approximately 2 years ago, we did some insight, as already previously been shown, and we saw more and more traffic was actually transversed in the internet, and customers were using the internet more for everyday activities, so cloud-based services, accessing information. So as part of the Wholesale Ethernet portfolio, we developed a product called DIA, or Etherflow Internet, as it is on the portals. And this is a dedicated service that goes directly from the end customer site back into the BT peering network. Now, the way we enhanced this and developed this product, we actually enabled customers to take this as a multi-service access. With the growth of SD-WAN, with the growth of customers needing this fast internet connectivity speeds, we developed this service, Etherflow Internet, or DIA, and actually decided that we were going to give you, as a wholesale market, the ability to choose what type of traffic you were running across your network, either layer 2, the standard Ethernet product, or moving to layer 3, which is your internet traffic. Now, the real advantage for you as an Ethernet customer is to be able to offload some of this low-value internet traffic. So the ability we have developed is, with it going directly into the BT core, it doesn't have to come back through your NNI. So that means that your total cost of ownership is reduced. You're not increasing your capacity in data centers, you're not putting more hardware in there. You're offloading this low-value traffic, if you see it as that way, to actually go straight out from the network and out into the World Wide Web. Now, as we already mentioned, we are increasing this product from an access point of view. We already have FTTP access on there. We have 10 gig access already on the service as well. So we're going right across the suite of products we offer from an access portfolio, have it as part of the internet portfolio, be it layer 2, layer 3. It's been developed very much for the wholesale market and is not available to even to our own retail branch of BT. And we obviously, being BT, we have this best of brand. So the priority traffic across the network is all premium. So as far as we can, we would make sure that you get real-time connectivity across our core networks, exactly the same as you would do on the layer 2 services. And the final part is, being BT, we have large amounts of peering. So we connect directly with all the big international resellers. So the Microsofts, the Amazon of this world, we have direct peering with them. And also part of that is we can peer directly with our big partners in this space.
Great stuff, John. So and I think the key one is that multi-service access, to be able to transition and have the flexibility between layer 2 and layer 3 services. So I think you've touched on a couple of things, but it might be useful just to give a quick update in terms of key things that we've launched on the product and what's coming up on the roadmap.
So as I mentioned, we've already done the FTTP access, and we will follow the standard layer 2 FTTP. So as more sites are rolled out, we will increase those as part of the portfolio offering. We already have the 10 gig service. Later this year, so in our Q2, which is June onwards, we will be launching BGP, which is Border Gate Protocol, which will enable you, if you've got your own IP peering, your own IP ranges, to connect with BT and offer you more resiliency in your network and the way you design your networks for your customers. And secondly, we also have a development following on from that of DHCP, where we're working with some of our partners now, are actually enabling us to identify the end equipment you have on your network, connecting that up easier into your layer 2, layer 3, SD-WAN type environments, and actually really realising the benefits of having this multi-service access. And then final part of this is we are looking for a longer term to actually move into more spaces where we can actually produce more SD-WAN type and customer-specific type solutions. So that's to come.
Okay, great stuff, John. So we've covered a lot of the features, functionality. It might be worth just, if we could just cover quickly, what are the current commercial offers that we've got both on our DIA and our Ethernet portfolios?
Yeah. Okay. So earlier this year, back in January, we made permanent our special offers. So BT have been running with a number of special offers on our Ethernet layer 2 and our DIA pricing. So back in January, we made all our pricing available on a permanent basis for 1 gig and 10 gig access for the layer 2, layer 3 variants, as we said. All of these prices I'm going to talk about are available on our pricing tool. So we have a dedicated wholesale Ethernet pricing tool. These prices are available now. We also are looking at, as in April just gone, we announced that we will follow through all the special offers that Openreach provide us, so the Gigazone and the Flex Zone type pricing. We will making sure we pass those through to you. Again, pricing is available on the pricing tool. So if you've got connectivity in certain areas of the UK, you will get cheaper pricing on our access products from us as well. And the final bit, just to touch on for today, is opportunity. So a lot of the market now, as Sam's already mentioned, this growth in bandwidth is moving to the 1 gig product. If you as an account team haven't spoken about the 1 gig with your account managers, please get in touch with them. We've got special pricing on 1 gig coming through, and it enables you to get ahead of the market and offering this flexible bandwidth and flexible speeds to your customers.
Okay, great stuff, John. And I think you touched on it as well, but when we talked about the Openreach offers, I think the key point there is that we've incorporated those, and they're all integrated within the pricing tools, the ordering system. So it's all fully automated. There's no manual, claiming, etc. It's all fully automated within the pricing tools as well. So we've talked through FTTP, we've talked through DIA. Sam, if I come back to yourself now, you touched on it a little bit before, but it might be good to give a quick update from a coverage perspective, in particular around dedicated fibre access, so where we're using EAD from Openreach.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Paul. So our network coverage is absolutely key to our strategy, and we've got a continual investment in our network. Really important. It's absolutely key to our strategy, and we want to be, the provider of choice into the wholesale market for connectivity, a gig and above. So the reason we want to do this is we want to kind of get the depth and breadth of the UK. We don't want to just invest in specific towns or cities. We want to cover the entire of the UK, and rural coverage is really key to this. we want to be there no matter what. So if you think about our 1 gig coverage today, really comprehensive coverage, we can offer a gig access from nearly 2,000 nodes across the UK, and that's right from the Shetland Islands, so top right there. You can see we recently enabled 2 nodes there, so Lerwick and Sullivant, but right the way, that kind of comprehensive coverage is reflective right the way across the country, right down to the Isle of Scilly, bottom left corner there, you can see. And I think why this is really important is if you think about expanding not just in the towns and cities, but also in our rural locations, is for those customers that might be on legacy private circuits, they need to look for alternative connectivity and they need to migrate off. And I think we keep touching on it, but you know, the demand is there right now for a gig. So this is something that's really key to our strategy this year. So we have got plans to roll out our coverage further within Scotland and into those rural locations. But I think it's fair to say like 2,000 nodes is really comprehensive.
Yeah, so that's really great for 1 gig. But we talked on, and in particular coming back to the poll at the beginning, which talked about the bandwidth growth and 10 gig being the default bandwidth in 5 years' time. Be good to give a quick update in terms of where we are with 10 gig.
Yeah, thank you. So 10 gig, thinking again, back to the insight at the start, absolutely critical to our strategy this year. And this is where a significant investment is going today. So today we can offer 10 gig from around 330 nodes across the UK. But this year we've got plans to roll out an additional 220 nodes. So thinking forward, what does that mean? By the end of this year, we'll be able to offer 10 gig from just over 500 nodes across the UK. And I think you can see there on screen the maps that we've been showing. Just to kind of really point out, we talk about our coverage, but how can you guys kind of get closer to this, understand it, see what this means for you in terms of opportunities in specific areas? So about 6 to 12 months ago now, we developed some coverage maps. So these are interactive maps that illustrate and demonstrate our coverage to our customers. They don't just cover our footprint today, but they also I talked about our expansion plans, so you can see our plan nodes on there today as well. So these maps are available now. We update them regularly, and they can be found on wholesale.com.
Okay, great stuff. And you touched on 10 gig in terms of maybe just to cover quickly how customers can really kind of get the best commercials in terms of 10 gig, in terms of how we interconnect with them.
Yeah, so I mentioned it briefly before. So in order to make it cheaper for our layer 2 wholesale customers to sell on 10 gig, about 2 years ago, we launched 100 gig access at both the data center and the exchange. So making it much cheaper for you, our customers, to work with us and aggregate traffic back to the network. So keen to make it work for you in terms of selling it on and consuming it back in.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. So on the subject of high bandwidth, it's a good opportunity here for me to bring in Rupert Chappell from our optical product line. So Rupert, can you just give a quick overview in terms of what's going on in the world of optical?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yes, the wholesale optical product sits at the top end of the bandwidth spectrum of our network portfolio products. It's a functionally simple service. It offers point-to-point connectivity, essentially transparent connectivity between 2 points almost anywhere within the UK. And because the capacity is dedicated, that means that the transmission characteristics have a very low and very consistent latency characteristics. So how do we provide this service? Well, this is provided over the optical core network, and where necessary, we also use Openreach's services or optical access services to get customers from their premises onto that node. The core itself is made up of in excess of 370 live optical nodes, more than 10% of which are actually in various data center locations around the UK, which puts us in a very good position to serve the inter-data center connectivity environment that actually makes up a fairly sizable chunk of our traffic at high bandwidths. We're also investing in that network. So over the next year or so, we expect to see considerable growth in the number of nodes that we have. So that will probably take us over the next year or so to around about 500 nodes. All of those nodes can be seen on the coverage map that Sam alluded to a bit earlier. And the locations of those nodes can be identified. And of course, as they come on stream, as we update those nodes or those maps, customers will be able to see where nodes are coming up. All those nodes currently support our 10 and 100 gigabit services. And excitingly, drum roll please, if you don't mind, they also, a small number, also support our shiny new 400 gigabit service, which is a service that we launched at the end of last month, actually. So because traffic is doubling roughly every 18 months or so on our network, launching 400 gigabit services will put us in a very good position to meet that demand going forward. The other benefit as well of 400 gigabit service is that actually it should drive down or should reduce the costs of traffic across the network on a per gigabit basis. So at the moment, we anticipate prices or rental prices for those services around about 2 to 3 times the price of the 100 gigabit service. So 4 times the bandwidth for 2 to 3 times the price. And like our 10 and 100 gigabit services, we will be using Openreach's OSEA services to get 400 gigabit from customers' premises onto the core.
So Rupert, really exciting on the 400 gig, and I suppose that demonstrates, as we talked about in terms of the increased coverage that we're doing on it, both Ethernet and optical services, the investment that BT's making within the network to support our channel partners. On 400 gig, it's not just a case that you just launched it. How's it going, and where do you see it going?
We're really excited actually because we got our first customer up and running, which is really great news. And in terms of where we are in the market, we're very much at the start. It's at the beginning of this. So early adopter use cases are going to be the inter-data center market and possibly to a lesser extent the CB build-out as well. And I guess probably we are roughly where we were 2 or 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago probably now, for 100 gigabit services. Which at the time were very much niche services, but over the intervening period, we've seen considerable growth, and they're now our mainstream service. And indeed, for services, the new provide services, they're actually our dominant solution. So we're very excited about that, indeed. So
yeah, so a really exciting time. So as you mentioned, though, not every customer is ready for 400 gig at the moment. So just quick summary in terms of the key things that we're doing to support customers on the kind of 10 gig and 100 gig bandwidth on optical.
Yeah, so I alluded a bit earlier to the fact that we're growing the network, so or increasing the number of nodes that we have on the optical network. And that will have the effect really of pushing the network closer to customers' locations. So that will reduce the tail services, and therefore, because they're charged on a length basis, that will reduce the overall rental for those particular services. So that will address some of the issues around rental. But with regards to the connection, we have 3 things that we want to share with you today. The first one is related to, or it's something that's actually been around for some time, where we can, or customers can amortize their connection charges, should they so wish, so that it actually spreads the cost of those connection charges over the term of your initial contract. That's already available on the quote tool that sits on btwholesale.com. It's just an option that can be selected. The second offer is a simplified and discounted offer that we're putting into place, and that's related to the 10 and 100 gigabit services that we currently have, and it's core only. Up until recently, the structure for the connection charges for those services was on a tiered basis, really, so depending on the type of node that customers were connecting to. So what we have done is, that's too complicated, so we've effectively got rid of that, and now we are just offering a single price for connection to either 10 or 100 gigabit. So separate price for 10 gigabit, separate price for 100 gigabit. And what we've done actually is set that at the lowest level of the previous tiers. So just over 6,000 for the 10 gigabit and 16,000 for the 100 gigabit services. The final offer is a genuine special offer that is time limited. So get your orders in quickly. It will last until, or for orders made before the end of December this year. It's for 10 gigabit services only, and it's where we already have capacity on the network, and that's a free connection offer. So free connection on services, 10 gigabit services where we have capacity existing already.
Okay, some great offers there, and simplifying the commercials as well. So you've talked through a lot, Rupert, on optical. Maybe just really quickly, last point in terms of where can customers get more information on optical?
Yes, thanks. So with the launch of 400 gigabit services, we took the opportunity to completely refresh our collateral, which is available to customers, sits on the BT wholesale.com website. What we've done is completely refreshed the brochures and included some additional material around case studies. We've also updated the technical specs to include the 400 gigabit, so that those brochures will cover a bit more technical detail around the interfaces available and things like that. And then finally, we've also taken the opportunity to refresh the resilience brochures that we have, which covers the various options that are available on wholesale optical services and the pros and cons of each one. Finally, I should just mention in the same place in the optical area of that website, there's a form for customers who are interested in that 400 gigabit service to register their interest so that we can have a steer of the sort of coverage that we need to look at going forward. So.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Rupert, and also thanks to John and to Sam. We've been through a lot there on the portfolio in terms of updates. Hope everyone has found that useful. But I'm sure people have got questions that we're really keen to hear now, and we can open up the questions. I think we've had some coming through as well. So let's go to those. I think from what I can see, first one that came in was, what's the difference between Ethernet and optical, and do we need just one portfolio or two? Maybe Rupert, do you want to take that one?
Okay. There's definitely, we do need both portfolios. They differ really. In the optical services, I guess, are probably functionally very simple and offer just a data pipe essentially. So they, as I said, low resilience, low levels of resilience, whereas layer 2 services, the Ethernet services, slightly more complicated. They can use things like traffic preferences or traffic priorities and that sort of thing. So the two different services really are used for slightly different things. Optical for network build-out, Ethernet for more complex uses.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Rupert. Just looking through, and just everyone should have in the Q&A, you should be able to see the links to the product documentation, and also in particular the coverage maps, the interactive coverage maps that, as we've discussed, cover Ethernet and DIA and also optical as well. Rupert, optical's obviously popular, so we've got another question on this, so which is about 400 gig, saying, I guess 400 gig is for on-ramp cloud services in the main for cloud OAT player access. Do you have many folks buying into these services outside of them today? if not what verticals. So I suppose it's more a case in terms of where do we see the market opportunity for 400 gig in the wholesale channel?
Yeah, I mean, it's very early doors really at the moment, and I think probably, initially the early adopters are going to be in the inter-data center space really, and the build out of CP networks. So that's where we are. I mean, as I said before, we've seen this with 100 gigabit services as well. So at the moment, we don't anticipate 400 gigabit being particularly interesting to our private network providers, services that using direct access. But, I suspect over time, that's where we'll be going because everybody needs more bandwidth going forward. So early adopters at the moment, 2 or 3 years down the line, slightly wider market.
Yeah, okay, all right, great. So going from one end in terms of 400 gig down to FTTP, we've got a question around FTTP. And I suppose this is about the kind of coverage. So Bob is kind of saying, great opportunity with FTTP, but he's saying here in terms of submitting 1,000 addresses and data washes and has only got about 6% of the addressable business. Sam, is there anything you want to kind of say about that in terms of how we could maybe kind of work and look to support that? Because that does seem a low figure from the analysis that we've done.
Yeah, it does seem low. Obviously, we work against Openreach's coverage. I touched on it being the non-residential premises. So I think ultimately it depends where your end user requirements are coming from as well. Obviously, it is an Ethernet, business focused variant. We're not talking about the consumer one. So we are going to be stronger in, the business parks and those kind of locations. Bob, it might be unfortunate that maybe yours was kind of outside of that remit. Obviously 1 in 3 is kind of general, but I think the biggest takeaway is the kind of growth that is expected to come as this. So I appreciate today it might be low, but we saw there 10,000 premises every single month. So 83% of that will be covered in 3 years' time. So hopefully, put in that postcode in 3 years and you'll have a better opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, as you say, there is a geographic aspect here in terms of, and it may be depending upon the customer site. I'm hoping this has just been unlucky in terms of the locations of those end sites has not fallen within it. It is worth to say though, if you've got a situation like that and it's 1,000 sites, definitely reach out to your account team. We can work with sales specialists, work with our product team in terms of looking at making sure that we're optimising as much as possible where we can get coverage. If, for instance, there is FTTP available but not on the Ethernet product, then we can proactively then build the cable links out to be able to make it available for customers as well. So definitely look at that as an opportunity. And as Sam said, the growth is really coming. One more question they've got. So just quickly before I go to that, please, any more questions, please submit them. Final one is around roadmap timelines. So, and he's specifically asking about EAD rugged and also EAD 2.0. John, I don't know whether you want to cover that.
Yeah. So part of our transformation process at the minute, and we're going through the early stages of how we change our product portfolio, is we're looking at EAD2 and what that will bring to the product, what it will bring to you as the customers of that product, how that will enhance your offerings to your end customers. So that is very much being considered as part of our transformation program. EAD rugged is another option that Openreach provide currently, and it's something we are not even looking as far ahead as the transformation program, but we're looking at now for specific areas of business requirements where we could actually use EAD rugged to actually meet those needs. So if there is real demand for it, we are already looking at the product. It may enable us to enhance our offerings earlier, but please get in contact with your account manager in the initial phase and we will have a discussion about what your requirements are and how we can take that forward.
Yeah, great stuff. So yeah, just to reiterate what John said, in terms of EAD2, very much our plan will be to consume that as Openreach make it available. Obviously, they're starting to share more detail with industry now in terms of time frames, etc. on it. So very much we'll be looking to consume that as part of our strategic Ethernet transformation, which John is going to be leading on within the team. So again, we're really keen to hear customers' views in terms of how we can help evolve the portfolio to meet the requirements of our customers. And things like EAD Rugged, as mentioned, again, we're really keen to understand customer requirements and demand, because that was what will drive us to build that into the product roadmaps.